You know enough about me by now to understand that I will do almost anything for a laugh, a prank, a bit of fun, the whole idea of lighting up the everyday task of having to work. Call me a swine, but I got even with Betty in just about the same style, and in the same picture. The Maxwell Anderson play called for a reconciliation afterwards between Essex and Elizabeth. In the story, we were supposed to be lovers by this time, and we had to play a love scene. It called for me to frisk around on some steps in the palace, her to lean out and say, "You rascal," or something like that. She was to push me as only Davis can do it, beautifully, by which time we were to get together very close on the steps. The director called for me to do something outrageous to the Queen. This wasn't too difficult. I was still smarting from the thing I had been through. I just started I decided that a strictly unorthodox thing to do around the Elizabethan court in those days would be to give the Queen a playful touch upon her internationally famous Pratt, which she could wiggle with the best, if she felt like it. And I wish I knew how often that was. The idea worked up in me, and at the rehearsal scene, when it came time for me to give her the playful pat, I said to myself, "Here comes my chance." I held my hand way out there. It must have looked like a piece of ham, and it went sailing right through her Elizabethan dresses, slappo, smack on her Academy Award behind. She went about 2 feet off the ground. She looked up at me livid with fury, and I said, "I'm awfully sorry. I don't know how to do it any other way. You must forgive me. Tell me if it's wrong or right." She was finding her way onto her feet, and I said, "Let's run through the technique again. You don't want it that hard?" "Oh, yes." She was a bundle of contained rage. I said, "I can only do it one way. I'm awfully sorry. I don't know how to do it any other way." It wasn't a very pleasant picture to make, for me, that is. Since that day, I have seen Miss Davis many times. When I do, she turns her head away. Once, about 5 years after this incident, I had the embarrassing moment of going by a table where she was seated and saying, "Well, Betty, how are you?" She looked the other way. That's the only woman in Hollywood I have ever had any historic trouble with. No real problem with any of the other ladies at all. As far as I know, anyway. All the other ladies with whom I worked are to this day my very good friends. I've never had a fight with any one of them. The distinguished Betty Davis is the only one. But, mellowed perhaps, next time we meet. Who knows? I never got to know most of the queens who starred opposite me. Relationships between male and female leads can be startlingly professional, cool, distant. Such a reaction of reserve is not necessarily limited to me. I've studied the cinema work of my contemporaries, and I have noticed that, with rare exceptions, there is a reserve in the best of actors in playing love scenes. In one of my more recent pictures, The Big Boodle, my leading lady was beautiful Rosanna Rory, an Italian girl. She was frightened at the prospect of playing opposite me, having heard what I was a notorious wolf, in my opinion, grossly exaggerated baloney. Her father sent her a cable to turn down the offer of a role. We made the picture, and she was so disillusioned, or I was so careful, that she popped out with her views in print. I was very disappointed to find him so shy and uneasy around girls. It was the destruction of an illusion that I have had since childhood. I would have liked, at kissing, to be a backbender, but I kissed with tight lips, devoid of passion, no open mouth, not much emotional quality. I usually even stood rather stiffly, bent down, and kissed so that my face might be out of view of the camera. Yet it must have had an effect on the audience, because I have been eating regularly from the motion picture work. In approaching these scenes, you sometimes thought out the details in advance and had tried to carry through during the embrace. At other times, you improvised as you acted, trying to be yourself. Both methods, but during rehearsals, I wouldn't attempt anything. Where the screenplay called for embraces or clinches. I handled it this way. The screenplay read, he, my darling, we have nothing further to worry about. We will be married as soon as possible. Are you happy? Embrace. She, whispering, of course I am, my darling. Embrace. Then we smelt each other's breath, for better or worse. When I acted it out in rehearsal, I would say the line, but instead of embracing, I would utter the word clinch. The female lead didn't have the chance to rehearse that embrace with me. We saved it for the scene that was to be actually filmed, so I found myself frequently uttering these lines and following through with the extra word, clinch. The female lead would wind up rehearsing with me the same way, with nary a kiss or a grab taking place. One leading lady absolutely rocked me. Excuse me for not mentioning her name. I was rehearsing the preceding lines with her. Several times we played it out with both of us, from time to time saying clinch or embrace. Finally, this shot had to be filmed. The camera turned. I leaned away so that the camera couldn't catch too clearly how thin-lipped I was as I kissed her. Her head went back. I was not even touching her lips, but I knew that on film this would be an intense kiss. I could see the dreamy look in her eyes, the one the public was paying admission to see. Then a surprising thing happened. Her tongue suddenly shot down my mouth and down my neck, way down. It felt about a foot down. There it stayed, I strangling, till I heard cut and resumed breathing. Having to work with a variety of female leads, you're in the professional and personal situation of facing, with each new picture, a new problem in human nature. I think it was my recognition of this that gave me a certain reserve. Casting decisions are primarily made by the producer. The director has a say in it, but the final word is the producer's. When you get along in your position in the film world, the actor or actress begins to have a large say in his or her co-star. Then it becomes only a matter of who is available. I never insisted on anybody to co-star, but I could have. I vetoed quite a few. The same applies to a director. It depends on his stature in the film industry. If he were a man of outstanding ability and prominence, such as John Huston, he would naturally be a deciding factor in who was cast. A man like Zanuck would consult with John Huston in the casting of a picture, if John were going to direct it, and since they could work together very well, there would probably be no disagreement. But there have been furious battles waged in some cases. Jack Warner, after I reached a certain stage, was generally open to my suggestions. As a matter of fact, I never had any fight with Jack about casting. A star does have a lot to say in the casting of the lesser roles, especially if he has to play scenes with somebody. He has the right to say, look, I'm not compatible with this character at all. Generally speaking, there was, at Warner's, a pretty sympathetic ear. As to the casting of people I was not actually going to play any scenes with, I never made any objection there is at all, since I never considered that my business.